Hey, let me introduce you to our featured speaker, Brian Burton, a native Arkansan, became the Chief Executive Officer effective October 10th, 2022, succeeding Rhonda Sanders at the Arkansas Food Bank. Burton brings over 25 years of nonprofit leadership experience to the role. And during his 11-year tenure in Las Vegas at the Three Square Food Bank, he nearly tripled the amount of food provided in the community. He's got a great deal of experience. His professional expertise includes rapid organizational growth and development, program sustainability, community engagement, public policy work, and diversified fundraising. He has a history of working in the philanthropic sector and building high-impact nonprofit organizations. He's a subject matter expert advocating social and economic conditions that improve the lives of people who struggle with poverty and hunger. So please give a warm welcome to Brian Burton.
Yeah. Thank you, George, so much. I'm so excited to find this kindred group I did not know was here. I was born and raised in Little Rock and Little Leewood. At that time was the edge of West Little Rock back in the 60s. And I moved away for 35 years and came back here 3.5 years ago. And I tell people it's like that Bedford Falls on It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. I feel like I'm just walking around looking at all my old elementary school and where the old church was that I was raised, flooded with memories here, wonderful memories. My parents are in heaven. My siblings live in Michigan and Texas, but I'm glad to be back home, especially in this capacity. It's a dream come true to finish out my career here. And I'm glad to see my colleague, Margaret Douglas, here with Helping Hand, because she and I met. She a hero, a community healer. And we met at a news panel with Steve Barnes about a year or so ago at PBS. I was raised by parents who believed faith was a verb. So when I see your foundation of prayer, study, and action, I respond to that very well. I'm not a typical Baptist. I'm more like to think of myself as a Jimmy Carter Baptist. My membership is at Second Baptist downtown, if that differentiates me at all. But I think we have more in common with the early Baptists, who were the left wing of the Protestant Reformation. Sorry. But yeah, but those type of Baptists are giving the minority report these days in Southern Baptist life that are, in my opinion, focusing on silly issues. My father was a dentist here for 40 years, and so I just feel blessed. I've inherited a legacy that I'm really finding what Frederick Buechner calls vocation, where the world's deep hunger and my deep gladness meet. And that's a feeling of wholeness, and you all know what that's like. I think the Hebrews call it shalom. And I just feel like life has purpose, and no matter who we are, or where we're from all walks of life, it's really a kaleidoscope. You're a beholder of beautiful things. That's what that word literally means. And to see you in action in the community, taking your faith out into the marketplace, this is what makes it all happen. So I will talk a little bit about the food bank. I'm not a salesman, but I am the CEO. People say, "Who are you?" I said, "Well, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, carefully disguised as a CEO. And I just lived that way. And it's just, I don't know. You mentioned Las Vegas. I went out there at the bottom of the housing crash in 2011, and I've never seen such devastation. And it really shook me to the core. But I had an opportunity to work with the Hiltons and some of those prominent families to create their first Feeding America food bank out there. And they got behind it in a mighty way. We were able to close some of the largest gifts in the history of fighting hunger because there was so much wealth and yet so much poverty. It was well, it's almost like Wordsworth, looking out over industrial England when he said, I stood near 1,000 tables and people behind and wanted food. It's just like the growing affluence and growing poverty really disturbed him, and he wrote about that. We're seeing that today. Unbelievable affluence, the world's first trillionaire, and yet terrible trend lines going in the wrong direction that affect most of the ordinary people who are struggling to live. I'm glad that 42 years ago, a group of people got together and said, it would be smarter if we cooperated and made one food bank that could concentrate on sourcing food safely and economically from across a region, and just have one organization's, really specializing in that and being efficient, having the trucks, the logistics, the warehouse. And so Feeding America, which is the largest domestic hunger relief organization, blessed the creation of the Arkansas Food Bank, and then some other sister food banks popped up to serve other parts of the state. But we are the largest of those. We serve 33 counties, mainly central, east, and south Arkansas, which encompasses some of the most persistent and pervasive poverty in the country, as you know, the Delta. Up to Batesville, over to Russellville, swing over to Hot Springs, all the way down to the state line there in El Dorado, and then over to southeast, come up along the East Arkansas Delta, and then come back here. So it's a very interesting, mainly rural, but also the urban heart of our state. Those founders said, let's make sure that we stay focused on hunger, because there's a lot of needs and you're tempted to get distracted wanting to solve everything. Housing, jobs, healthcare. And there's never, just one contributor to a food insecure household. But to their credit, they stayed mission centric and said, let's be the backbone of the charitable distribution center for this part of our state, and try to do this through other partners that are on the front lines and lift them up in a real serious way so they don't have to spend time, money, and energy going out and sourcing food on their own, but they can be freed up to let us help them with most of their food needs. And that way, that frees up the resources for them to focus on developmental programs. Because people that are coming in for food, that's usually a portal, an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation about the rest of their journey and what are some things they might be eligible for public assistance like SNAP. What are some programs here available that they can participate in, and how can we support them in that journey? So to me, the Arkansas Food Bank has primary customers and their helping hand in 330 other pantries across those 33 counties. And that's our customer. If they're happy, I'm happy. If they're not, I'm not. And we directly relate with them each and every day. And we've tried to get better and better at the quality of food, the healthy food, at least 70% of what we call food to encourage. Now we have some really good programs around food as medicine, and we are doing more and more SNAP outreach. We've enrolled over 1,000 people in SNAP in this fiscal year, which is a big increase from previous years. And it's in spite of onerous rules in this state. I don't understand. My beloved home state can make things tougher for people who are already struggling. And that's why I say hunger is a policy choice. That sounds kind of rough, but I believe that, because asset limits do not need to be in place where you disqualify people from being eligible for SNAP because they have a beat up car or grandma left them an acre of land in the Delta. And if they have those type of assets, oftentimes they're not eligible for SNAP, which is our biggest federal nutrition program. So we're working with our elected leaders. We do have a good bipartisan coalition that has made some good progress. I give the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance a lot of credit for progress we've made with school breakfast and summer EBT. And sorry, I'm using some of this insider language, but that's a new program that Senator Bozeman actually sponsored that started a year ago last summer that just provides a little more grocery purchase support for families with kids. And so we're really doubling down on how we can maximize access to these federal nutrition programs, because that's 80% of the solution. A lot of people love the Arkansas Food Bank and our partners, and we appreciate that so much because we need all the support. We fill in the holes. We provide those services that the government doesn't provide, or maybe can't provide as much personable support. But at the end of the day, it's not just charity. As a matter of fact, charity cannot solve hunger. We can make an impact, and we are. But faith-based charity didn't build the Hoover Dam. It didn't send a man to the moon. There are jobs that are so enormous that it requires the government to step in a mighty way. And I think some of that has been lost in recent years. And some of these cliches about, well, the food bank could do it better. And I know they intend that as a compliment, but it's an ignorant statement, because they don't understand that we don't have near the capacity or resources that the federal government has. And so I feel like we're doing a very good job at being able to find those underserved pockets, the folks that are being missed, the agencies that need a boost and more support. And trust me, more support's coming. I cut my teeth on this work in Dallas at an agency not too different from Helping Hand. So I know what it's like to struggle on the front lines when you don't have a lot of marketing brand awareness and you're trying to, serve endless lines of food and demand. And we are very much advantaged as the food bank because of our size to have a lot of earned media and programs and support and matching campaigns. But my whole goal of that is to funnel that straight back into the community. So I like to say you don't give to the food bank, you give through the food bank. And so we've already put $300,000 back to the farmers just in the last, I'd say, 8 weeks buying produce. We found some farmers that really want to be involved in this work. And most of our crops here, even though we're a huge agricultural state, it's not the variety that we need. Soybean, cotton, rice, they're going to cut way back and not plant as much because of the catastrophe that's hit that market. And so we have some farmer relationships in South Arkansas and Bradley County in that area where they have a beautiful variety. And if the squash is too big, Walmart won't buy it because the customer doesn't want it. Well, we like big squash. And it's very interesting if you go out to eat. And by the way, I'm so excited. Little Rock has a very good culinary scene. I thought after Las Vegas I'd be depressed coming here because I eat out every day. I don't cook. I'm single, and I found this little restaurant on Lower Cantrell called Brave New. Have y'all been there? Well, I can't afford to eat there at night, but I'll go there at lunch. And when you think about food, it's a divider of economic class. If you're poor, the main thing about food is there enough? You think about quantity. That's why they will get there at 5:30 in the morning for a 10 o'clock distribution. It just always just sort of goes all over me to see the fear of running out, the scarcity mentality. If you're middle class, you will normally, eating your meal, will hear people talk about, did you enjoy the food? How did it taste? If you're upper class, you tend to talk about how it looks, the presentation. So think about the hugely divergent perceptions of the same thing, food. And so Ruby Payne has a book about that, where she talks about the hidden rules of class. And she said, whether you're talking about food, money, time, education, clothing, people, depending on the economic class you were raised in, you have a completely different image and connotation of that. And you have a different understanding of the social hidden rules that are appropriate for survival in that class, which is oftentimes why we fail in teaching children who are lower income, because we're not speaking in a language that is communicating with them. And so we've learned a lot of these things through the years. And so our agencies are our heroes. They're our angels on the front lines, and anything we can do to build them up. Many food banks, so I hope you understand how this process works. We have 13 trucks. We have a 100,000 square foot warehouse on 65th Street by Scott Hamilton. We merged, by the way, in 2016 with Rice Depot. Do y'all remember Rice Depot? Wonderful organization, very faith-based, had a volunteer program that apparently put ours to shame. And so, but after a while, it became more obvious that we were overlapping. We were doing some of the same things. And so it's a rare moment in nonprofit when we merge, because there's usually too much turf and ego involved. But it happened. I wasn't here, can't take credit for it. But that's been a really good thing because we've been able to leverage the strengths of both to have one organization that is providing most of that food. And so, but we will deliver food to our agencies, not all of them, but those that need it. Some of them drive in to the warehouse and pick up food, sometimes every other day, sometimes once a week. I mean, we have all sizes. And then we have two branches, one in Warren, that's Bradley County. Pink Tomato Festival, went there, met Governor Pryor there. That ages me, I'm 66. When I was in college, he was there. And then in Helena, where we've had a branch and a pantry, and that enables those more far-flung rural agencies, saves them a lot of expense and travel and time coming all the way to Little Rock. And we're able to send trucks out there, and we have warehouses that are smaller but very adequate to serve those communities. We've just recently wrapped up a 6-year process of really, I call it racial healing and reconciliation in Phillips County. It was sponsored by Feeding America, and it was called Community Accelerator. And they were able to facilitate bringing in people from all walks of life who had shared love for community, but needed to really talk openly and honestly about what needs to change in those communities for there to be real equity and real healing. And some of the conversations, have brought the participants to tears, and it's a beautiful thing. They can no longer do it because of funding, but we're going to continue that the best we can. And we just bought a building there in downtown Helena. It's the old car dealership, and hopefully we'll pass the inspection because there's always environmental stuff when there's cars. But hopefully we'll pass that, and we're going to have what we call a resource center. That we found this idea in Cleveland and Columbus, and there's one in Oklahoma City. And it's basically like a super pantry that invites other providers in. They call it hoteling. And so you have housing providers and you have other people. That we found a group called the Birthing Center there in Helena. That's a beautiful asset. And we're really working across the different sectors to say, what can we concentrate to help folks that are coming in for food change the direction of their life? And that mental model of planning often is never implanted in generational poverty, but it can grow and it can be mentored and you can teach and coach, but you have to be patient over time. It's not a quick fix. And I'm glad they trust us there. We didn't go in there and say, well, this is what you need. That's the definition of suffering, to be acted upon. And particularly people that look like me, there is a lot of disappointment in the Delta about people coming in with a "we're here to save you" mentality. So we just, from the very beginning, we just had listening groups, and we didn't talk that much. And that Community Accelerator was the sort of entree into that. So they seem to be very excited that we're at this point now where we bought this building, and they're helping us figure out how to utilize it. It's a large facility. So one thing I want to talk about, the pandemic and the government shutdown, and then I want to shut up and let you ask questions. The pandemic changed everything. On my bitter days, I say the pandemic ruined everything, but it did seem like a lot of things went haywire and haven't been quite the same since then. But it did create a vortex of just food from the government and the amount of aid that they pumped into the the communities and the nonprofits and food banks was unbelievable. And for a short period of time in Las Vegas, we actually closed the meal gap. That's the first time that's happened. But it shows you when government will step up with massive resources, it can solve the problem. Again, it's a policy choice. And I understand we don't have unlimited funds. I'm not an idiot. But I just long for reprioritization of much of the funding that we have so that we can direct it in ways that generate more funding and more vitality and more economic benefit. Every person that we enrolled in SNAP this last year, every dollar they spent here locally generated $1.54 in economic activity. That's your local grocery store, hiring more clerks, buying more trucks. I mean, that's a really important. And so during the pandemic, all the balance sheets of the food banks improved. And for the first time, we weren't just living hand to mouth. Gave us a chance to dream a little bit. Some of those food banks spent all the money that they collected, and I respect that. I mean, the need was huge. I appreciated Arkansas Food Bank sort of took a middle approach. They said, let's have a reserve for rainy day. We've never really had much of that, but let's be real smart and careful about how we're investing this once in a lifetime windfall. And because they did that, they've been able to move forward with steady growth. Most of the other food banks went back to pre-pandemic levels of distributing about 30% less food than what they peaked out in 2020 and 2021. Arkansas Food Bank was able to maintain its pandemic levels, 40 million pounds, and we're doing that to this day. We've said we have a growth campaign for the next 5 years to get to 54 million because that's where we need to be for the meal gap to close. And so we're determined to do that. That's not something that I'm just hoping will happen. But, someone said one time, no one told us it was impossible, so we did it. And that's what you have to do when you're a nonprofit, particularly in 2026. You have to speak and think and believe. Like the Korean Christians I saw in 1990 praying when they were together in their churches at 4 a.m. Those young people were praying fervently, and they knew God was listening, and they knew God would act. And just the faith of those people made me come back and, first of all, grieve at so much of the dead believers that were still walking and breathing and talking, but they were not on fire. And so when I see what can happen, I realize, wow, we have to have that passion, particularly now. The folks who are against us want us to give up and go home and shut up. We cannot do that. I mean, Christ has never abandoned us. God will never, never, never forsake you. That's an old Baptist hymn. And so I just have to believe that we all need to encourage each other who share these values and share a belief that faith is a verb. We have these assets. We have this great opportunity now in the hungriest state in the country. And we can be a story to the rest of the nation about how we climbed out of that together. And it actually takes all of us, the philanthropists, the elected leaders, the population as a whole, community leaders. And I see green shoots. I see a lot of signs of hope out there. And I'm not a Pollyanna. type person who's just daydreaming, but I really do. I mean, anyone who spent 11 years in Vegas, you get a dose of reality out there. And so I come here with that and with a fervent belief that our best days are still ahead of us. I have an impact sheet here, and I brought about 10 copies. I really didn't know this is a bigger crowd than I expected. Oh, ye of little faith. Sorry, I need to practice what I preach. But yeah, here's an impact sheet front and back that will tell you the numbers. You know, some people want lots of numbers, you know, but I like to say each number is a person, a face, someone's grandmother, someone's child. And that's what we have to remember each and every day. The food bank is one step removed from the front lines, but the Margarets and those that are blessed to float free throughout this community and to heal and to love and to listen. These are our people that we have to support. We want to support them because they are the hope. They're the ones connecting, inspiring. And as the psalm says, and the psalmist says, and I think it's chapter 84, as they walk through the bitter valley, they make it a place of springs. The early rain covers it with pools. They go from strength to strength. The God of gods will be seen by them. Because of what you do, because of what we all do together, that vision is manifest and made true and is made available to more and more people. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your conviction. And thank you for putting your faith in action. Now, do we have time for questions, George?
Absolutely.
Because I will, as you can tell, I'm clergy. I will hold you at mouth point if you let me. Any question or comment, or ask me something hard, I don't mind. Yes, sir.
Well, how many individual donors does the food bank have? And is
Okay.
the majority of your revenue from corporations or larger sources or individual?
Great question, the philanthropy question. We have about 40% of our budget this past year, about a little under 16 million. Used to, we would get what they call TFAP funding, a lot of the government commodities who my new friend over here has worked for them. That has declined, you know, in the last 2 years. So to answer your question, I'd say about 40% of that amount is from individuals. And I would say numbering on most years, about 15,000. Average gift, $38. There's a lot of monthly donors. Unlike many of my peers, I consider myself a fundraising CEO. It's what I love. I'm not that great at operations or programs, really. I told the search committee when they interviewed me, I said, if you're looking for someone to run a food bank, I'm not your guy. But if you're looking for someone who can build partnerships in the community, build an extraordinary culture within the organization, and raise funds, I said, those are the 3 skills that I have. And they said, that's what we need. So here I am. But the rest of that budget would be a mix of corporate, Tyson Foods has recently made a good pledge to us. Of course, Walmart's always there. But a lot of small businesses that you may not have even heard of. Almost every day there's some presentation going on in the lobby. I love it. And then we have grants from foundations. But my real thrill is individual donors, no matter what size. Because if you build it deep and wide, the next recession that comes, and there'll be another one, some of your big donors pull away because they've been hit hard. But I find that your small to medium donors will usually stay with you. Some of these folks have been given to us since we opened, and they don't leave. And so every Tuesday, I do nothing but call donors and thank them. It's the thrill of my day. Because I like, look, I know I'm a pen pal, you get letters from me, but I said, I'm an extrovert. And I said, I love to get to know people. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Understood or thought. And also there is a good amount that comes from restaurants, hotels. Do they or don't they are
Yeah.
larger food sellers?
Yeah.
Have you been able to accomplish reaching out and getting as much available locally or in the region that you serve? I'm confused as to just how large the region you serve, but.
Yeah, great question. It's that 33 county service area. And I've got a map of it on the handout up here. You're talking about food, we call it food rescue or fresh rescue. So part of those trucks I'm talking about are picking up regularly at Kroger, Walmart, Brookshire's, any grocery store that will partner with us. And they're usually pulling out the produce that's starting to turn. I mean, we're not going to hand out rotten, even though sometimes that slips through. I'm sure Margaret has seen a rotten potato or two from the food bank, but our volunteers do a good job at gleaning that. Once we bring it back to the warehouse, they look it over and make sure it's good. And then they'll dates that are getting close. And, to me, a lot of these dates, it's a joke of the corporate world. Most of that food, if it's been stored properly, is still good beyond its date. It just depends on what. Highland Dairy, they were there yesterday, biggest donor, 3 million pounds of milk last year. And they're right down the street. And Heidi the cow was there yesterday. So happy to meet Heidi. But no, this food waste in this country, I've decided that we're the most wasteful country in the history of the world.
Yeah.
We waste enough food to feed the entire country of Germany. And so that's the other upside of a food bank is we're able to divert so much of that food that would be going to the landfill and creating methane gas. So it's an environmental smart thing to do. I always say if you're not motivated by compassion, at least be motivated by economic self-interest or the environment or whatever turns you on. That's those are all benefits that flow in all direction. And but yeah, we have the restaurants, a little different creature. You've got the window of safety now there once it's been prepared. We tried doing that on the strip in Vegas. It's a lot harder than it looks. We had blast chillers and had to spend a lot of money piloting that program. But Potluck, which is a great partner of ours, they're actually considered a distribution partner. They're not only a pantry, but they help redistribute the food. And they have a truck and they do really good rescue at the restaurants. We have technology is our friend. There's something called Meal Connect. So now the restaurant can just immediately let us know. We can pass that on to Potluck. They can be there in 30 minutes, pick up the food, take it to our house or help me out, Compassion. Yeah, Salvation Army, Compassion Center. I'm so glad you all work with our house and in these other organizations. That's really smart that you're focusing on these very productive and effective nonprofits. Yeah, one in the back. Yes, sir.
What's, from your perspective, what's like the biggest challenge or like opportunity in banker stuff?
Biggest challenge is ignorance, probably. People that don't really understand the connection between what our leaders do and the sort of problems that we have to face, like I've talked about before. And I've been told I need to settle down on some of that because I'm probably going to make somebody mad. But I'm just at an age where I don't really care that much. Well, do I have a witness? It's like I care more that there's unnecessary suffering. It's discretionary. And why are we doing this? And so obviously, it doesn't matter too much how much you care about whatever issue that you are behind. If there's no money, there's not a lot we can do. And so I have a philosophy that, particularly with wealthy people, that money is a burden and they want to be separated from it. Margaret and I are here to help them do that. Right? Because I've gotten to know some of the billionaires in Dallas and Vegas, and I met one here recently, and I thought, wow. And I realized there's so much like me who doesn't have that much in the bank. But and then the people that come into the food pantries, we all are wanting a better life. We want our kids to have opportunity. We want a roof over our head. We want to be rewarded for our efforts. We want to leave the world better than what we found it. We have so much more in common than we realize, that we put up all these false differences and dividers, and somehow the wealthiest country in the world oftentimes looks like we're the unhappiest. And so, but yeah, I would say the money's always going to be part of that answer, and it's a predictable answer. You knew I was going to say that. But I would say ignorance is a big problem. One of my seminary professors said, it's not ignorance so much that bothers me, it's ignorance in action. And I said, yeah, that too. Yes.
Give something over here.
Thank you.
But what about as activists?
Oh, yeah.
Are any of the stores ones that you wish we would say, and you're buying your groceries at X, Y, Z, and I won't say a name, because I don't know who else, who gives you this. I've seen
Yeah.
them in some places look like they're kind of shuffling off stuff that looks pretty good to me, and I don't want to
Yep.
throw it away.
Always ask for the manager and say, what are you doing with your food that you are no longer leaving out on the produce shelf, or that's getting, yeah.
I have your cereal there and somebody else.
Yeah.
And,
But I wouldn't spend my money with an organization that didn't share my values. And fortunately, the vast majority of those grocery retailers do the right thing. And yeah, we don't have like a wall of shame on that front. Maybe we should on some other deals. Yes.
As I saw at a business recently in May, like in their lobby, it was very nice what they were doing and the people that contributed to it. Well, since the children get out of school in May for the parents that they help, to feed their children. In May, they called it a cereal drive, so of course
Yeah.
they were taking donations of cereal, but so,
Thank you.
but all bars.
Yep.
And I like children, so.
Yep.
I thought it was very nice of them to do that. And it was also nice, as you know, to think of them when the children are not at school in
Yep.
June and July, because if they qualify for the free breakfast at school, then they can't get it then.
Oh, boy, you're an educated donor. Thank you. Did y'all hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, there were a couple of more hands.
I have a question. You were talking about, the policy choices. Is there any, policy decisions right now in our state legislature or federal
Yes,
legislature that we can support, that we can call our representatives about?
yes, you can call both of our senators and tell them you really believe that we need to do a 2-year delay on implementing the cost sharing for SNAP with the states. The states are not prepared to take on the amount of money that they're going to be required to do from the big beautiful bill. Arkansas is going to have to cough up $50 million if our error rates remain high. Now, the error rate, I just found out yesterday, came down last year. Now, the error rate is not fraud. Those are administrative errors that are made, but they are punishing states that can't get that together and be more efficient with their administration. And so the lower that error rate, the less onerous the cost share will be on the state. So we're gonna, I put out an editorial to the newspaper today. I don't know if they'll print it. But I'm asking both of our senators to support an extension, a waiver, so that we can have a 2-year delay in implementing that, because the states aren't ready for it. And we have the most powerful congressional delegation in the United States. Every one of our congressmen and both senators chair committees. Florida doesn't have that. Yeah, hold my beer, Florida. So, but yeah, and so we have a lot of power. Senator Bozeman is over the Ag Committee. He's a wise man. He's a good man. I love him. He is smart, but he's also, I'm sure, has pressure coming at him from all sides. But I've heard that he at first was against a delay, and now he's thinking about that. So if we could encourage him in particular. The other U.S. Senator, I don't know where he stands. Anybody else before I get the whistle blown? Because I think I've gone overtime. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Some of us are fortunate enough to be able to go out to eat.
Yep.
And I was in California recently, and I asked my grandkid to take a plate to eat. And the bill, amounted to what I paid for my first car.
It was a shocker, wasn't it?
Well, it happens anywhere, it's not just California. But is that trend helping or hurting the systemic food insecurity issue in America, or is it just immature?
Are you talking about the proliferation of fast food outlets?
No, I'm talking about the expense, those of us who can afford it.
Oh.
When we go out to eat.
Yeah, you are stepping on my toes there.
Do I help the situation do I help the problem of food insecurity by devoting that much of my resource when I go out to eat, or is it just that's it?
I mean, some of you may have an opinion about it. I believe in supporting local businesses, and I like to be generous with the servers because they're all underpaid. So I tip a ridiculous amount, but I believe that that person could just be a hair's breadth away from having to take her kids to the pantry next weekend. And so I don't know that I don't think that you're making the problem worse unless you're hurting other priorities in your household budget. I don't know, it's none of my business, but I think you seem like a pretty smart person, and I'm sure you're gonna make those choices.
What my grandkids are picking up on.
Well, and I know that's part of the American consumerism that we all are affected by. Margaret,
First of all, I can thank Arkansas Food Bank for stepping up and always being there, partner for helping in and bring them. When we had government shutdown in October, Food Bank. I can help. They offer third probably second largest bank. With food bank.
Yep.
Yeah, they have always been here for me. And this past and respond to your question. I want everybody to know this is one of my faithful clients. And that's why they're there to assist us. When I started helping people, there were things that I not you know, you would go out and eat. But when you go to the grocery store, think about it. It also support the price you got to have. Go to the grocery store, whatever you want, you throw it in a basket, knowing that when you get up to that counter, you're either gonna put out the MasterCard or cash out your pocket paper. When you come to a food bank, and I invite all of you to come sit about when you actually see people, they're so thankful for the food that the food that's ready here, the food that my donors were able to purchase. Stop. Made me stop. I put a little more thought into it. Join it sometimes. If I eat. What? Enjoy it. You deserve to work for it. But that moment, take the grandchildren out. Join my friend. And give them time. And take them. But there's somebody. But then you're the grandchild. There's somebody put out. Say, oh, this is put out. Sometimes. When you see a child, be there for you. Take it up with now, I'll get my word. July 1st, there will be the man. Federal judge blocked on the sugary free and all,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Today I read that if Arkansas who is going through it, I know the children don't know sugar, they eat all that stuff, but when little Johnny is sitting, don't pay a bill. All right, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's you're making a kid that's going to be a bully. I'm going to take it back. Right. I think I got to understand why you can't.
Yeah.
We all look at talk about it. It's not, yeah, no problem. If I think they're going to have, what is that, 20-hour work week? Or they need to work 20 hours a month.
Yeah, there's big work requirements.
That means all of it. Trickle down, shift. And when they're saying, that hurt.
And there's a dignity piece to that too, right? I think that's a great note to end on. Is that okay, George?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, what a beautiful word. And you're beautiful people. I just thank you for having me here tonight. I just love what we're all working towards. And thank you for being generous with your support, not only to us, but to making this community more livable, more humane, and more godlike. Bless you.
So I neglected to mention that if anybody needs to make a donation with a credit card or debit card, I'm available for that. If you need information, if you're new here and you'd like more information about what we do and some of our activities, there's a slideshow out of the table and there's some information. There's also some brochures and membership forms that you can avail yourself of. And I'd like to mention that our next in the series on hunger and housing issues in Arkansas will feature Sandy DeCourcy and Scott Schellenbarger, past and present executive directors of St. Joseph Center of Arkansas. And they'll be with us on July 23rd at 6:30 right here in Fitzgerald Hall. So thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank